All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. Before we get into the live action, I just want to remind everybody out there that next week is World Ocean Week. And like we do every school year to celebrate, we have a pile of live lessons and virtual field trips exploring our ocean with scientists, researchers, explorers from all over the world. So if you visit exploringbytheseat.com, and then either under the news section or under events, you can find our Canada World Ocean Week. You can also find our World Ocean Week in partnership with the Explorers Club. We have a ton of really cool live events and some really cool virtual field trips, like being live on ocean research vessels. We'll go live on the beach in California with elephant seals. So there's a lot of really great ocean content coming your way. So we hope to see your classrooms joining us for those sessions next week. And you can check your inbox as well if you're subscribed to our newsletter, because the full listing of events should have come your way last night. Okay, let's get in on this action. I am going to be our host and I'm going to be our speaker today because I was really lucky a few weeks ago and got to spend some time in South Africa. So Africa is a beautiful place. South Africa is a beautiful country. And what I want to do today is take you to the north of the country, to the greater Kruger National Park area, take you out into the bush and immerse you in some amazing wildlife out there. So I'm going to share my screen and then we'll have a Kahoot later. We'll have Q&A time. It's going to be a good time. Let me bring the presentation front and center. There we go. And maybe I'll make it a little bigger. Perfect. So why was I in South Africa? Well, if you've been following along the last couple of years, you know we've been working with an expedition called the Darwin 200. So this beautiful tall ship, this historic three-masted schooner, the Oosterschelde, has been sailing around the world following Darwin's voyage of the Beagle for 2 years now. We left Plymouth in the UK in August 2023. And we've been doing the world's most exciting classroom every week, beaming in from around the world, great guest speakers, experiments, and things like that. And then along the way, I've been lucky enough to catch up with the ship in the UK, in Rio, Peru, and Ecuador, Galapagos, Australia, and then most recently in South Africa. And then while I'm out there, I usually go out in the field with our satellite units and we do live events from the field. So my trip to South Africa was to meet up with the team there and do some live events with some of our conservation partners. But before that, I couldn't resist going to from Cape Town out to Kruger and out into the bush to spend some time with some African wildlife. So that's what I want to share with you today. So where did I go? I went to Kruger National Park. This big green thing here is Kruger National Park. Over on the other side is Mozambique, which is the country next to South Africa. And then down here are these reserves. These are private reserves that used to be fenced off and kept separate from Kruger. But not too long ago, all of these reserve owners, landowners, decided to drop their fences between Kruger and the reserves, which means it increased the size of Kruger National Park. It's called the Greater Kruger Area now. And now way more animals can interact, move between, migrate. It's really great for the biodiversity of this area. And it greatly increased the size of kind of the Kruger National Park area. That's why they call it Greater Kruger. And so if you look down here, this is the Klaserie Private Nature Reserve. This is where I spent my time. You've got this river running through it. This is the Klaserie River. Gives it the name Klaserie Private Nature Reserve. And it's 66,000 hectares. So this is a huge area of land. And it's one thing to look at it at a map. Let's take a look at it in real time, in real life. So this is, I'm flying my drone. This video is sped up just a little bit. And I'm flying over part of the river. This is the Klaserie River. This is so important. This is the lifeblood of this area. Provides a great water source for animals, especially in the dry season. And as I take the drone up in the air, you can see it is bushland. It is wide open. There's no houses or roadways. This is a beautiful nature reserve full of life and full of biodiversity. So as we drop back down, we'll go along the river one more time. You can see the river snaking through the reserve, and you can see it is huge and why there's so much wildlife that you can find when you explore this area. So my days started the same. Every day was out in a game vehicle looking for wildlife. Every night, again, back in the game vehicle looking for wildlife. And let's take a little look at what that looks like. So these safari vehicles, these Land Rovers, are big, strong, tough vehicles. There is someone sitting at the front. This is Vusi. He's the tracker. He's looking for signs of animals, footprints, maybe the grass being bent in certain ways, listening, trying to figure out where the wildlife is, because this isn't a zoo. You got to find the wildlife. Then driving the vehicle is Pierre. Pierre is the guide. So he's not only driving, but he's also, talking about what we're seeing and why it's important and things like that. And so this is sunrise one morning. The sun's just coming up. We're crossing the Klaserie River to get to the other side. And on this particular morning, we were looking for buffalo. And you can see how tough this vehicle is, going right through the river, no problem. So when people visit Africa, they really want to see, well, as much wildlife as possible, but in particular, they want to see something called the Big Five. The Big Five is a term that's been around for a long time, and it used to be a hunting term. So the Big Five were kind of the five biggest, most dangerous animals to hunt in Africa, because they're so big and dangerous that if you make a mistake, they can kill you. So that's called the Big Five. Nowadays, the Big Five, we still go out and try to shoot them, but we do it with our cameras instead. So the Big Five is more like a tourism thing now for people to go out and to see wildlife and to take photos. And so I was really hoping that during my time out there, we would see the Big Five. So let's dive into some of the wildlife. So first of all, this is our first member of the Big Five. This is a buffalo. These buffalo, for being really big animals, were really hard to find. It took us about an hour to track these buffalo down, and we found a herd of them, a herd of about 200 to 300 of them. It was hard to tell because they were spread out a little bit. Some were moving through the bush. Some were lying down. There were big ones, adults. There were little baby ones. There was a lot of buffalo moving through this space. And something that helped us find this group of buffalo was those birds. These are called oxpeckers. And these oxpeckers have a symbiotic relationship with things like buffaloes and impalas and rhinos and giraffes. What they do is they hop around on the animal and they eat bugs and parasites off of that animal. So the birds get a nice source of food, and then the animals get cleaned off. They get all the stuff off of them that they don't like. And these oxpeckers, we followed them, and that's how we found this big group of buffalo. Is we knew the oxpeckers were looking for the buffalo too. So by following the birds, we were able to find this group of buffalo. I got a little video clip here to share with you as well. So you can probably hear my guide, Pierre, talking. He's talking about how they're very temperamental. They're a little more relaxed in a group, but if you come across them and it's just one on its own, they get very nervous and they often will charge people. And you can see that they're kind of looking at us. They're not too sure about us being there. But they basically make their way through the grass. They're eating all day long, trampling the grass. They really make big changes to the ecosystem when they move through as well. So that is our first member of the Big Five. Our second member that we came across was this beautiful southern white rhino with its calf, with its baby. So rhinos are a member of the Big Five. They're big, strong animals. And unfortunately, they are really endangered. They're being hunted for their horns. In places in Asia, they think that the horn has medicinal value, when in reality, the horn is made of the same thing as your fingernails and your hair, a protein called keratin. So there's nothing special about it. But unfortunately, rhinos are being killed because of that belief. And so here's a close-up picture of our baby rhino there. And then if you look at the picture of the mother, you can see two things here. She's got two little oxpeckers sitting on her back, but then her horns are gone. And this is what is done to protect the rhinos in these private reserves. They remove the horns, because if you take away the horns, then the poachers aren't going to try to kill the rhinos because there's no reward for them. So that may seem like, wow, that probably really hurt the rhino. But in reality, taking their horns like this is the same as cutting your fingernails or cutting your hair. It doesn't hurt the rhino. And believe it or not, after a few years, the horns grow back, and then they have to do the same thing again. They have to remove them to protect them. So it's unfortunate that it has to happen, but it does keep the rhino safer than if they still had their horns. Our next member, number 3 of the big 5, are the African elephants. I love these elephants. It's so fun to see them moving around, drinking in their family groups. So what's really cool is their family groups are led by the oldest female. She's called the matriarch, and she's generally been around for a long time, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. She knows the area. She knows how to keep everybody safe. She knows where to find different water holes. So she's the leader, and then she's there with her family in all different generations. So if you look here, this is probably maybe one of her daughters from a while ago. Here's 2 kind of medium grown elephants. And then we even have this little baby down here too. So it's a whole family group here having a drink at this watering hole. And I've got a little video here too, so you can see them drinking. You can see, if you look at the back, you can see the baby poking its head out just from behind the tail. There it comes. You can see the way that they drink. They have those big, strong, muscular trunks. They pull the water in, and then they bring it up, and almost like a straw, they squirt it into their mouths. So this is a cool little video of these elephants having a drink at the watering hole. And you can see it's a whole family group there, and it's led by the biggest one, that matriarch, the female. Okay, then where are our males? Well, our males, when they're fully grown, big like this, we call them bull elephants, and they tend to be off on their own. So they move around on their own. They're big and strong. They're ecosystem engineers. They trample the grass. They push over trees to get what they want at the top. They really do shape and change the ecosystem when these big males move through an area. And then here you can see this elephant is giving itself a little shower. It's squirting all that muddy water out of its trunk and then all down its back. And I've got one more elephant picture here. This is a mother crossing the Klaserie River. And you can see the little baby there with her. The baby's splashing and playing in the water, just like you guys would do in a pool, or maybe if you're having a bath. This baby couldn't have been much more than maybe a few weeks old. You can see this baby's got a lot of growing to catch up with its mother. Our 4th member of the big 5 is our lions. Beautiful lions. They are together in a group called a pride. They hunt together. Usually the females do most of the hunting, the lionesses, and then they tend to like to hunt more at night because it's a little bit cooler, a little bit easier to sneak up on your prey. This group here was a very lazy group of lions. They had just probably eaten something the night before. Their tummies were big and full of meat. You could see their big round tummies. And they were just lounging in the bush, yawning, relaxing, just kind of saving energy before maybe a couple days from now when they're going to have to go out and hunt again. And then sometimes you find them at night. So at night, we were driving around using a spotlight to look for wildlife that was out at night. And we found this female lion, and she was kind of lost. She had gotten separated during the day from her pride. So she was moving fast, and she was looking for the rest of her pride. And in this other little video clip here that I want to share with you, I want you to listen really closely, because when you think about lions, you think of big, loud roars. But listen to the sounds this one's making.
So it's contact calling.
So those little whoo sounds, it's contact calling, like you heard our guy Julia say. And the reason she's making those little sounds is because she knows her group is close, but in the long grass, she can't see them right now. So it just makes her feel more comfortable to make those little sounds and then to hear little sounds back from the other members of her pride. So she's just making those little hoof sounds, and it's really just helps her feel like she's safe and close to her family, to her pride. We have one more member of the big five, and it is our leopard. Leopards are so cool. They're so strong. They're very strong predators. So when they catch something, they immediately drag it up into a tree. And the reason they do that is to keep their kill safe from hyenas or lions who might try to steal it. So if it's up in the tree, they can eat it more slowly, and they don't have to worry about something coming along and trying to steal the meal. So this leopard here, her name's Shingwezi, and she had caught and killed an impala, and she dragged it all the way up into this tree. And this is probably, she's had it up there probably for a couple days. She's been slowly eating this impala, and we were lucky enough to find her and spend some time with her as she was kind of just finishing up. When she finishes, she's really clean. So she spends a lot of time cleaning her paws, cleaning her face. And the reason she does that is because as a hunter, she doesn't want to smell like an impala. She doesn't want to smell like blood, because in a couple days from now, if she's hunting something and it smells her coming, that's bad. So it needs to, they try to stay really clean to be able to hunt and track down what they want. And then eventually she's got to come down from the tree. So you can see she's jumping from branch to branch, making her way down from the tree. And it's a lot easier to go up than come down. So she's very cautiously making her way down this tree trunk to get to the ground. And this is a different leopard. This is another female leopard. Her name's Kruger, and we found her at night. So she's just got the spotlight lighting her up a little bit. She's got those beautiful bluey green eyes. So that is the big five. That's the buffalo, that's the rhino, the elephant, the lions, and the leopards. But of course, there's a ton of biodiversity of different kinds of plants and animals. And sure, things can be big, but they can also be really small and pretty cool. So this is a chameleon. The chameleons are usually out at night hunting for insects. There's our little vervet monkeys, and so they're pretty playful. They like to wrestle and mess around and play together. We have our leopard tortoise that would fit in the palm of your hands, making its way along the gravel roadway, looking for little bits to eat. Our bee eaters, so these little bee eaters are usually in little groups, usually little pairs. They like to come back to the same branches, and they jump up and kind of snag bees out of the sky, insects and bees when they fly by. They're very fast and very good at it. And then this little blob frog here is called a rain frog, and they live underground. They can live underground for weeks to months to maybe even years, and they wait for the right conditions. So good rain will lure them to the surface when they know there'll be good stuff to eat, when they know they could find a mate. But otherwise, when it's dry or drought, they can be underground for long periods of time, keeping safe and waiting for the right conditions to come to the surface. There are over 700 different types of birds in this area, and I saw about 130 of them while we were there. I love owls, so I saw some cool owls. This is an African scops owl. This one is a spotted eagle owl. We had this Verou's owl with its pink eyelids, and this one here had caught something. So the sun's just going down, and I'm not sure what it has. It's kind of furry. It could be a little mammal. It could be a bird. I'm not sure what it's eating there, but it caught something. And then living right at the camp where I was staying was a little family of African barred owlets. So you can see these two snuggled up together on the branch. Hummingbirds. There aren't really hummingbirds in Africa, but there are these birds called sunbirds. And so just like hummingbirds, they drink nectar from plants, but their wings do not flap. They can't hover and move their wings as fast as a hummingbird. They move much more like a regular bird, but then they use those hooked beaks to help them drink nectar from flowers. There's birds that like to live along the side of the water, like this hammercroft. And you can see it's got a funny shaped head and a big beak, and it's looking for insects and frogs and other things it can find along the edge of the water. We have these beautiful spoonbills. I think you can see where it gets the name spoonbill from. They're more like filter feeders, so they filter algae, little plants, out of the water. If you like Lion King, you probably know all about Zazu, the hornbill. So these African yellow-billed hornbills are pretty widely spread out. There's kingfishers, like this beautiful pied kingfisher that's hovering over the water looking for fish to dive down and snag. And there's beautiful colors like this lilac-breasted roller. So its chest is kind of a light purple color, and it's got these beautiful blues on its wing, these light blues, dark blues, sky blues. So a lilac-breasted roller. My absolute favorite, though, is the wild dogs. I love the wild dogs. Sometimes you might hear people call them painted wolves, but they're pretty rare in Africa. There's only about 4,000 left in all of Africa. They are really good hunters, and they live in packs. They live in groups. Usually, I mean, the group that we spent our time with over a few days, it was a pack of 12. There were 12 that lived together in a group. And I said they're really good hunters. So here they are eating an impala that they caught. And a lion might catch food 40% of the time it goes hunting. 60% of the time, whatever it's chasing gets away. Wild dogs are the best predators out there. 90% of the time, they catch what they're after. They have really good stamina, big lungs, so they can run for a long time. So an impala may be faster, but the wild dogs can run fast for longer. So the impala runs away, it gets tired, and the wild dogs still have lots of energy and are able to catch it. But it's not always easy for the wild dogs because hyenas are usually following the pack, and they like to try to come and they like to steal whatever the wild dogs have killed. So you can see this, there's a group of 2 here, and they're trying to steal the dinner from the African wild dogs. You can see that the African wild dogs are holding tough. They don't want to let that hyena steal it. And then I've got a couple little video clips so you can see what it's like. So let's see if this first one will play here for us. There we go. So you can see they're there, they're eating. And then just over on the right, we're going to see a hyena come sneaking in, kind of looking at us too. The wild dogs are watching it. Here it comes again. And the wild dogs say, okay, that's enough. Get out of here. But another one came and joined the first hyena, and they were more successful in a group. So listen to all the sounds that the hyenas make. So you can see they've managed to steal the impala and they're dragging it away, but the wild dogs aren't very happy about that. They're trying to figure out how can we get our meal back. So the wild dogs, definitely my favorite, but they are endangered. They're losing their habitat. There's conflict with humans. They're being killed sometimes if people think that they're threatening their cattle. So 4,000 in all of Africa is not a lot. They are definitely threatened with extinction. But a few more pictures here before we start some Q&A action. We have our giraffes, our iconic giraffes here in Africa. And it's always fun to watch them drink because they have to get in these really funny, awkward positions. They bend their legs really funny to try and bend down low and get a drink of water. And then when they're lifting their head up again, they always kind of have this big trail of spit coming out. And that's because their saliva is really thick. It's really thick because when they eat acacia bushes, trees, that saliva coats the thorns and helps them go safely through their stomach, through their intestines without hurting them. So when they finish drinking, they're standing up, that thick saliva kind of splashes or spits out of their mouth. We've got our zebras, like these two here, having a little hug there in the bush. And then you'll often find animals together. So you could often see a group of giraffes with a group of impalas, with a group of zebras. And the reason is there's strength in numbers, there's safety in numbers. So if there's more eyes and ears and noses looking for predators, odds are one of them will spot it and be able to warn everybody else. So all these animals have different skills for detecting predators. And if they're together in a group, there's a better chance that they're going to hear, smell, or see the predators coming and be able to warn each other. We've got troops of baboons. You'd often see moving close to camp or moving through the dry riverbeds. We've got our wildebeest here out in an open area. There's scavengers like this jackal. So they don't catch a lot of their own food, but they'll wait till lions or hyenas are done eating, and then they'll scavenge some of the scraps. We've got our warthogs. So this is a mother warthog with two babies. And then the last animal I'll show you today is our impalas. Impalas are very important. They are probably the most mammals you'll see when you're going around are impalas. There's lots of them, and they're a very important prey animal for many different species. So they sometimes call them fast food in the bush because they're fast and they're a food source for a lot of other animals. And then this pair here, I've got a little bit of video. They're having a little bit of a fight. So this isn't a serious fight. This is more like a practice. They're practicing, they're playing, because in a few weeks, they're going to be doing this for real to compete for females, to try and show who's big, who's tough, who's going to have the most girlfriends. And so these two, they're not fighting for real, but they're having a good practice, because in a few weeks, things will be more serious. And so that's what they're up to there. Okay, well, that's what I want to share with you, what it was like to be in the bush, to see some of the amazing wildlife. And before we get into Q&A, I'm going to come back from my screen share. And I prepared a Kahoot quiz that we can do together. So if you'll just give me a second, I will get that loaded up on the screen. All right, there we go. You should see this coming up on your end right about now. Perfect. So if you want to join and play along today, you can go to kahoot.it. That's the website, kahoot.it. I'm going to ask you for a PIN number. 099035. So if you have a Chromebook or a tablet at your seat, you could join that way. If you don't, no big deal. Your teacher could open this at the front of the classroom. You could shout out your answers to him or her. If you're joining from home, you can scan the QR code and it will bring you into the Kahoot. If you can't join with technology, no big deal at all. You can still play along and see how well you do. So we'll give it maybe another minute to see if we got a couple more groups in here with us, and we'll play some Kahoot. And then if you have questions, you can start to put some questions into the chat. We'll answer some of those questions. We've got a camera classroom backstage as well. We'll bring in shortly, and we can take some of their questions. And then, yeah, that'll be it for us this afternoon after our Q&A action. So we'll give it maybe 30 more seconds. And then we'll be good. Okay, looks like we'll have a small group today, which is fine. Let's get things going and play some Kahoot. All right, first question coming your way. What part of Africa is the Klaserie Private Nature Reserve found? So where would you find it? Would you find it in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Botswana, or South Africa? So where is the Klaserie Private Nature Reserve found? Tanzania, Kenya, Botswana, or in South Africa? Got a few more seconds to lock in your answers. All right. It is absolutely found in South Africa, in the northern part, kind of right on the border of Mozambique and South Africa. All right. Let's go to our next question. Another multiple choice. Who is not a member of the Big Five? So who doesn't belong here? Is it the leopard, the giraffe, the elephant, or the buffalo? Okay, that was pretty quick. It is the giraffe. We know our Big Five is the buffalo, the rhino, the elephant, the lion, and the leopard. The giraffes are obviously an iconic African animal, but they are not a member of the Big Five. All right, next question coming your way. True or false action? The bull elephant is the leader of a group of elephants. Is that true or is that false? That the bull elephant, the big male, is the leader of a group of elephants. True or false? A couple more seconds on the clock. All right, that is false. We know it's the matriarch, the oldest female. The bull elephants tend to be off on their own, and then they just join up at certain times of the year. But most of the time, the female is leading the group. We've got one more question coming your way. And it is a true or false question. What do you think about this one? There are less than 20,000 lions left in the wild. What do you think? Is that true? There's less than 20,000? Or do you think that's false? There's more than 20,000 lions left in the wild. Got a couple more seconds to lock in that true or false. And then we'll switch gears. We'll go into a little bit of Q&A action. Okay, that is absolutely true. We don't know for sure because Africa is pretty big. We do know that there should be hundreds of thousands, if not well over 1 million lions in Africa. Unfortunately, they're down to less than 20,000. They're being hunted. They are losing their territory, losing their habitat. And then there's human conflict with wildlife. So when there's villagers living in the same place as lions and lions kill sheep or cattle, well, the villagers want revenge and they usually kill the lions. So that happens a lot, unfortunately, in Africa. So our final board here, we'll give a big shout out to all right, the Blue Yeti. So good job to the Blue Yeti. Good job to those who are just playing along without joining. Thanks for playing some Kahoot with us. I'm going to come back from the screen share. We're going to turn that sound off. We'll get back on camera. There we go. Okay, let's get into some Q&A action. So if you are joining via the chat, don't be shy. Send in some questions in the YouTube live chat. I'm going to bring in Madame Sylvie's crew from backstage and see if they have some questions for us. Hey, Madame Sylvie's class.
Hi, we had quite a few questions. One of the first question was, what did you eat while you were there?
Okay, well, the truth is very, very well. We ate very well in the bush. It takes a while to get to the camp. It was about an 1.5-hour drive, but a few times a week, there will be like a truck that comes out and delivers food. So we had just normal meals like you would have probably had at home, cereal and eggs and stuff like that for breakfast. We had, things like stew or tacos for lunches or dinners. So we actually ate really, really well for being out in the bush. It's a long drive in the bush, but they do send trucks out there to deliver food maybe once a week or so. Okay, let's take a couple more of those questions.
Another question we had was, did you get attacked while there?
All right. The worst attack that I had was maybe the bugs sometimes. The animals there are really used to people, and we're usually always in a vehicle, like the safari vehicle. So when we're around the animals in the bush, most of the time they don't even look at us. They just do what they normally do. They pretend like we're not there. Sometimes they might look at us and be curious, but most of the time they're just kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. So no animals attack. No animals look like they were going to attack. I'd say the bugs were the most attacking animals that were there.
What was the most dangerous animal you saw, and did you see any reptiles?
We did see some reptiles. That leopard tortoise was a good example of a reptile. The chameleon was a good example. Outside of my room in the river, one day on the rock, there was a big monitor lizard. It was kind of gold and black speckled. So I saw that. I didn't see any snakes, which was a bummer. I really like snakes. Snakes are pretty cool. But there are very, very venomous animals in the bush, particularly the cobras and the black mambas. So the trackers, they don't like the snakes because it makes their job tricky when they're walking through the bush and they encounter a snake. It can be a deadly situation. So they don't like the snakes very much. All of those big five that you saw, the rhino, the elephants, the buffalo, the lions, the leopards, they can be very dangerous creatures. Especially if you're just walking around instead of being somewhere safe like a vehicle. They have killed people, all of those big five, particularly the elephants, the buffaloes, because when they encounter people and they get scared, they charge. And we're not very big compared to a buffalo or an elephant, so they can run right over people. They don't want to, they won't look for people to run over, but if they're scared or they're frightened, that's one of the ways that they defend themselves and they defend, their group or their family. All right, I'm going to come back and check in on your crew in a few minutes, but I want to go to YouTube and grab some questions. Okay. Do animals recognize the guides? I don't think that the animals recognize the guides. I think it's more they recognize the vehicles and the sounds of the vehicles. So they hear the vehicles, but they're so used to them being there. A vehicle has never hurt them. A vehicle has never tried to eat them. So over time, the vehicles kind of just become part of the environment, and they're just used to seeing them a few times a day. So I don't think that the animals will recognize a particular guide because the guides don't interact with the animals. They don't give them food. They don't try to touch them. This is a big, wild space, and they're big, wild animals. So it's more they recognize the sound of the vehicles, and they don't find it that worrisome. Why are the hyenas so bad behaved? Well, that's just their adaptation. So if you're an animal, hunting is hard. It's hard to catch something to eat. It uses a lot of energy. It is dangerous. If you're hunting something like a buffalo or a zebra or a giraffe, they can kick, they can bite, so you could get hurt hunting. So for the hyenas, they hunt sometimes if they have to, but it is much safer if they can steal something to eat. So, the wild dogs are smaller than them. So they try to use their bigger size to intimidate the wild dogs and to steal part of their meal because it's easier for them. They can be more lazy. And then it's a little bit safer for them because it's not, they don't risk getting hurt by whatever they're trying to hunt and whatever they're trying to eat. Okay, what else do we have here? My favorite part of being out there was definitely, two things. Anytime that I could be out there with my camera and just taking pictures of something really special. I love to bring those memories back and share them with people like classrooms that are joining us today. I did this this morning with another big group of classrooms and shared the stories and the pictures and the videos. So I love being out there and taking those pictures. So that's great. And then I really enjoyed nighttime. So at night, we would, as the sun was going down, we'd stop. We'd have a snack and a drink. Then we'd drive around for another hour and look for animals in the dark. So a lot of times there's nocturnal animals like the owls come out. The leopards and the lions are more active. They like to hunt at night when it's cooler. And then we'd come back, have some dinner, and usually sit around the fire by the river, sit around the fire, tell stories, share pictures, and just talk about what we saw that day. So the evenings were a lot of fun. I really enjoyed every night. The best time of year to visit, you could make an argument. So there's two seasons. There's kind of the wet season and the dry season. So the wet season, it's obviously rainy, but everything's greener and looks more alive. So it's a very beautiful time to be in the bush. In the dry season, everything's kind of, it doesn't look as nice. All the leaves have fallen out of the trees. It's really, really hot. It can get really, really hot, but it's a bit easier to find the animals because without the leaves on the trees, it's a bit easier to find them and to see them. So both seasons have their pros and both seasons have their cons. When I went, it was kind of the end of the wet season and the dry season was just beginning. So nice weather. The bush looked beautiful. There was a tiny, tiny bit of rain. It didn't really last very long when there'd be a little sprinkle. So I think that was kind of a nice time to visit, kind of the transition, the change between those two seasons. So it looks like we have our Dalewood crew in Hamilton hanging out with us, and they're wondering how the Big Five shape their landscapes and do they impact each other? Well, the buffalo, the rhino, and the elephants would be called ecosystem engineers. And that's because they're so big. When they move through an ecosystem, they can't help but change it and alter it. So they're trampling the ground. They're dropping nutrients all over the place when they go to the bathroom. They are pushing down trees, especially the big bull elephants, which can make some space for younger trees and kind of changes the area from more of a forested area to more of like an open savanna, a grassland that a lot of animals like. So those big ones are ecosystem engineers. And then our leopards and our lions are keystone species, which means they're really important to the whole ecosystem. They keep it in balance. So the lions, the leopards are making sure that the populations of herbivores don't get too high, so they don't damage the ecosystem too much. They a lot of times hunt the sick, the weak, the older animals, so they kind of make sure that populations stay healthy. So they've got that predator-prey relationship. And then we've got the predators as the keystone species that kind of shape the environment by keeping it in check. And then you have the herbivores, the big herbivores, who move around and basically change the environment and spread nutrients around the environment. So that's kind of the role that they play. The predators is the keystone species, and then those big herbivores are ecosystem engineers. They change the ecosystem just by moving around and doing what they do. All right, so we can probably take a couple more questions via the chat. I'll check in with Madame Sylvie's crew one more time and see if they have a question or two for us before we say goodbye for today. Maybe I'll take a question or two from the chat, and then we'll wrap up for Monday. So Madame Sylvie's crew, if you have another question or two, feel free to turn on your mic.
Yeah, we had a couple of questions. So one of them was, what do rhinos eat?
All right. Well, the rhinos are big herbivores, so they really like the grass. You'll often see them eating the grass. Sometimes they'll kind of pull leaves off the trees, chomp up the branches a little bit. But when we saw those southern white rhinos eating, they were really focused on the big, long grass. They were eating the grass. That was kind of their source of food. And then that little baby was drinking milk. So drinking milk from the mother. Eventually, it's going to eat more grass until it gets to the point where that's all it's going to eat. It's not going to drink milk from its mother. And I told this story to the classes from this morning. Oftentimes, they move rhinos to different reserves to keep them safe or to make sure there's a good number of male or females. And that female rhino, several months ago, they moved her. And then a few days later, she appeared with a baby. So they had no idea that she was pregnant. And they never would have moved her if they knew, because it's dangerous to move a pregnant animal, especially something as big as a rhino. But luckily, it turned out okay. And then they got a surprise in the reserve when a little bit later, she turned up with that baby rhino, which is pretty cool. And the baby's healthy and happy. And yeah, a nice surprise for the rangers and the conservationists at the nature reserve.
Excellent. Thanks so much. One last question. How many animals did you see in total in South Africa?
Oh, that's impossible to answer because I was in the bush, I was on the coast, I was diving underwater in the kelp forest and with sharks. So if I had to guess how many different species, probably over 200, over 250 different species, both on land and in the water, and birds in the sky, bugs on the ground, plants. And then if I had to put a number on it of the animals, well over 1,000 different animals, because in just alone, the buffalo is in a group of about 300. Or when you're by the ocean, you might see a group of 2,000 cormorants or thousands of fur seals on an island called Geezer Island that we visited. So thousands and thousands of different animals, which was pretty awesome. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for those great questions.
Do we have time for one more?
If you've got one, go for it.
One of my students asked, are buffaloes really furry or is it just muscle?
So they're obviously very muscular. They're big, strong animals. And they're covered in fur, but it's not like, like a German Shepherd would have big, long fur. Their fur is very short, very, very short, kind of stubbly fur. If you look at them really closely, they might have a little longer on their chins, a little longer on the end of their tails, but their body is mostly just really, really short fur. Not like your German Shepherd, which would have much longer fur. And that's a good reason for that. They're always moving through the bush. And if they had really long fur or hairs, they'd be more likely to get snagged and tangled. So it's just easier to have those really short coats. And it's so hot in Africa that a big, thick coat wouldn't be that great either if you were a buffalo. All right.
Yep. Are we good? Do you want another one?
We can squeeze one more in if you got another one.
Sorry. So I had a kind of a serious one. How would an elephant hurt a human?
Okay. Well, an elephant, the first thing is an elephant doesn't want to hurt a human. Elephants aren't walking around the bush like, I'm going to find a human today and I'm going to hurt them. But when humans and elephants interact, it doesn't always go well. So elephants like to protect their families, protect their territories, and they're big. So the way an elephant would hurt a person is kind of charging and stampeding over top of them. So if an elephant got scared or felt threatened, it'll make a lot of noise. It will flap its ears. And then if the person still doesn't leave, or the animal, whatever it's scared of, then they'll probably charge. And elephants can weigh thousands of pounds. And so, that's how people are usually hurt is they're trampled. An elephant, isn't looking for people to hurt, but if they're scared or threatened, then they're going to protect themselves, just like you would if you were scared or threatened.
Say thank you.
All right. Thanks, crew. Those were some great questions. All right. Well, just a quick reminder before we sign off, we have a ton of World Ocean Week events next week. Check them out, and hopefully we'll see some of your classrooms joining us for some ocean action coming up. I will probably do another Africa lesson maybe sometime in the next couple of weeks, only this time I'll focus on my time in Hans Bay and Cape Town, where it was more ocean. So exploring the ocean, out with the African penguins on Dyer Island, shark cage diving with the bronze whalers, and then a few other fun things out in the field, kelp forest, snorkeling, and things like that. So maybe we'll do something like that later in June. But next week is all our ocean events. So we hope to see you hanging out for those events. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. And we're going to sign off for now. Thanks, everyone.